Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. This is 2R's the Hard Way. I'm Rhonda.
And I'm Rico.
And today our topic is how well does your kids or spouse know you to write your obituary?
Well, mine is going to be blank because mine don't know me at all, clearly. And I don't have a spouse. So that is probably going to be something that I probably need to write myself.
Yeah, and that would be a question. Or do you write your own?
Because, doing a lot of things that we in the Black community or other communities, I'm just going to say Black, but a lot of people we forget or keep saying, I'm going to get to it. We don't do our planning of our funerals. We don't set up the trust, and we don't do all those things, or the wills and all those things.
Or we don't even have life insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think that I know my children don't know me well enough to write my obituary. I will probably write them a draft because I don't even think that they know what high school I went to. So I would need to write them a draft so they can have something to go by, and then that they can interject and put their input into it as well. But because you don't want to have an obituary, you have 4 sentences. Hopefully my life, my dash meant a little more than 4 sentences. So that's probably what I would do. Or of course, have you interject because you know me. We've been friends for decades now. So you could fill in the gaps that the girls miss. So.
And for me, I think I have 3 sons, and when you mention high school, no, they do not know what high school. I think they know the month I was born. Do they know the date? I don't know. So that's a deep question, because even my husband, he could not tell you what high school I went to. Wow. Even the jobs I've had. Now he knows where I work, and my kids know where I work currently. But do they know what happened prior to? So maybe I would have to even write my own.
Because I have passions. Now my kids know my passions. And everyone knows my passions if you know me. But I would want my life story to be more than just my passions.
Right.
And like you said, they would know maybe certain people that passed, but they weren't real close with my dad's side. So they really wouldn't know that information as well. So I would have no choice but to probably write my own. And even if I was to meet somebody now, would I expect my husband to remember all those things? That's a lot when you're grieving too, to even try to, because we had to do one, and the person couldn't write their own. And of course, I'm family, but it was a little difficult to even still do that, where I had to lean on you to help me. So it's hard when you're grieving and then you don't know that information. So I think that you should have like kind of, not necessarily a funeral packet, but like when you pass away type, this is where my paperwork is. This is where my life insurance policy is. This is what I want to be said. And of course you can put your own spin on it, but these are the things that I want to be said at my funeral.
And so I wrote my mom's obituary, and I will say I did a pretty good job. There were some dates I had to clarify with some of my older cousins, but for the most part, I wrote it, and I wrote it because my mom shared a lot of her life. She shared a whole lot, and she told the stories. And we always had family get-togethers, and my mom, even, I miss those stories, but she would share. And so we knew a lot about my mom. And but now that my kids are older and they have their own families, we don't do that. We don't do that. And I think they would miss that. And my husband, now that we've been married 13 years, I don't know how long we've been married. We've been married over 10 years, 11 years. We've been married over 11 years and been together 13. But I think because he wasn't there in the beginning, those aren't conversations. Oh, I went to XYZ high school. And oh, my first job was, we don't have those conversations.
And you probably had them in the very beginning when you were getting to know each other.
I don't remember.
But don't nobody remember that mess. You know what I'm saying? And y'all done moved on to what's in the present at this moment. And so, and then again, that grief comes in. You're not remembering that stuff. So,
but you know what? I will say, I do know my husband's. I know a lot about my husband's.
But I think too, again, it may take into the person.
Yeah.
Because I don't try to forget stuff. So I have been bad with birthdays, but here recently, but I try not to forget things. If you're important to me, then I try to remember what's important to you. So, you know, but those things, some men, that's not important. They, you know, you hear about men saying they forget birthdays, they forget anniversaries, because those things aren't important to them.
For most, yeah.
Yeah,
mostly,
but they'll remember that they need to change the furnace filter. You know what I'm saying? And that may be 3-4 months down the line, but they'll remember that. Or the water, you know, stuff that's important to them. So you have to take that into account as well.
Yeah. Now, when you mentioned you want your obituary to say more than say your passions, what you're interested in, do you feel that, how do I want to word this? Do we live a life that we are okay with? If someone were to write our obituary, are we living what we want to be said in our obituary?
But I guess again, that would be in someone's perception of you.
Yeah, that's true.
Because me personally, I don't feel like I've lived a bad life. I don't feel like that what I put out there to people and my family and friends, that should be something that negative would come back on my obituary or in my funeral, you know. So I don't personally feel like, but then again, that's going to be someone else's perception of me. So I don't know. I guess then you would need to delegate too, because if you already know someone's perception of you is negative,
you don't want them.
Then I don't want them writing my obituary,
right?
Because you might get up there and say a whole hot mess.
Exactly.
So that's also a thing too. So you have to think about that as well. And again, that's those hard conversations and saying, if you have 2-3 kids or whatever, and you have to be okay with putting one person in charge and letting it be.
Yeah. So that's,
it's definitely, it's definitely, I mean, of course, as we talk about, no one wants to talk about death, but as we're getting up in age,
it's going to happen.
It's happening.
It's happening.
And like for me and you, losing both our moms so suddenly, it's not something you want to hear, but it's a wake up call. And it's like, wow, this is really it. And then you really, because when you're younger, you're just at flying by the seat of your pants. Life is just happening. You don't even pay any attention. And now as I'm older, I'm like, oh my gosh, this year went by so quick. It literally went by so quick.
Right.
And people are not living to the times of when they were like 90 and 100 years old, like they were back in the day. You're dying in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so, you know, you try to make every day count. Every day.
And that's that dash.
Yes, absolutely.
That's that dash. And you want to make sure whatever that dash is for you, it's going to, for me anyway, whatever that dash is, I want to make sure I'm living my life that dash means what it means to me. People can see she is a good person, because I think I'm a good person. And I want, when they write, she was a good person, she loved her family. Like I want that. I want to live my life that way. So when they're writing, it doesn't, like someone else reading is like, that's not who they talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want that dash to mean, to be what it is, and like not trying to find words and fill it. Like I don't want you to fill in stuff. I want you to talk about me as who I am.
Absolutely.
And so that dash, and so I think you live your life to make that dash mean
now
something.
So like for me, someone writing my obituary, I have 2 biological daughters, but I have a host of daughters that I did not give birth to. So then also me having to write my own obituary, I don't want them to be excluded.
Right.
because, like for my mom, we went through a situation where I'm an only child, and I have a sister who is not birthed by my mother, but she's my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the time, I didn't write my mom's obituary because I had everything else going on, and it was just a hot mess going on. So, I had help. Other family members helped me write it. But my sister let me know, still to this day, that it hurt her feelings that they put her as an honorary daughter.
Mm.
And so a lot of times we don't look at, and I've just had that recently happen to me as an honorary grandchild. And so you don't think about how that's going to impact somebody. Who are you to say what I am to that person?
Right.
You weren't there to know what our relationship was.
Right.
And just because she's your blood mother or your blood aunt or whatever,
right,
does not mean that she did not love me equally, or could have been even more, or whatever the case.
Right.
So those are things to think about if you have different family dynamics and you're leaving your biological children to write, or your husband or whatever, who may not necessarily know. Like right now, I'm not currently a foster mom. And so they would not necessarily know about my previous children just unless I bring up in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I currently don't have children, so he would not know to put those girls in my obituary. So,
yeah. So comment down below. Have you written your obituary? Now that you've heard this podcast, are you going to consider writing your own obituary? Or do you think your family knows you well enough to write your obituary to where you would be proud? Like, they did me justice. They did that.
And again, do you think that you're living your dash where it's going to be obituary worthy?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we all will leave this world, but what legacy and things are you leaving behind, and what memories? And she helps me a lot. We do a lot of stuff together, and her family loves me just like I'm part of it. And so you want people to be like, where's Auntie so-and-so? Or I remember when they did this and that. And you want those memories. And she's always saying, we need to create memories. It's not about spending money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about doing those things, but we need to create memories and stuff for people to remember when I'm gone. They can always say, hey, I had a good time with Mom and Auntie Rico, or whatever the case. Because I try to make her kids call me Auntie Rico. But, so those are things that we need to think about as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she mentioned create memories, and I know this doesn't have to do with the obituary, but one thing after losing my mom, I told my kids, I said, I don't want to celebrate Christmas with gifts anymore. I think what you do with the gift, they end up, you lose them. If it's perfume, you spray it all until it's gone. If it's clothes, people outgrow them, holes get in them. If it's toys for the kids, they break them, they lose them. But memories, you keep forever, and you take them with you. And so this past Christmas, I took my kids, and we went, the grandkids, we went on a cruise. That was our Christmas. And so the kids will always remember that was their first cruise. Mm-hmm. They'll always remember. I remember my first cruise. Mm-hmm. And I remember I went with my grandkids. I went with my grandmother. So those are things that I want to do. And I think I do believe create memories it's that dash. It's when you feel that dash in. Mm-hmm. My grandmother she loved her family. Mm-hmm. She wanted to spend time with her family, and it was important that's what I want my dash to say. In part, I want my dash to be, she loved her family.
I completely agree. So I know without a shadow of a doubt, and I have a granddaughter that's out of town, so I don't get to spend as much time with her. But my grandson can definitely say that he is grandma's baby for sure. So you need to definitely leave that legacy behind. For sure.
Yep. So again, comment down below.
Yes, definitely. We would like to hear your feedback for sure.
How do you do? How have you done?
Do you feel you're living your dash?
Yeah. And then if you're not going to write, because some people are like, no, that creeps me out. I don't want to.
I get that.
I don't want to write that's obituary. That's death. I don't want to think about that.
Maybe just write some bullet points.
Yeah.
So maybe not write the whole thing, but maybe say, this is where I went to high school at. And this was maybe you don't want to put first love in there, but
my first job.
Yeah, first job. Or, maybe your kids don't know what you're passionate about. So just maybe make just little bullet points and say, here are some keynotes for my obituary, because I know that these are things you did not know about mom or dad or whatever. So.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in. And until next time,